Hello YouTubers, this is Gold Standard CG924 coming at you with another video. I'm going to be continuing with my SummerSlam archival reviews for today. Unlike my previous review, which was SummerSlam 2002, this won't be an audio commentary video. I normally do audio commentary videos on certain occasions, but you know, as you can see, the downside to that is that it takes me a while to kind of organize all the images I need, just as a visual background, just to like list like the matchup screens and stuff like that. And on top of that, when I finish doing these audio only videos, it takes me a long time for me to upload them to YouTube. So it's kind of like a two-step process. Just saving the document, and it just takes a long time for me to upload it to 100%, and then just upload it on YouTube from my video files, and the rest is history. So I mean, it's a pretty long process, so that's why I don't do them all the time. But just with a simple webcam and just clicking on record, I mean, you don't really have to wait so long or just do all these steps to kind of upload your videos. So I mean, doing with the webcam, just with me talking in person, I mean, well, that's not necessarily like in person, but like just the one that you're seeing me talking about certain things, especially whether it's topic discussions or TV review or something like that. But that's just kind of what I do when I think of doing audio commentary videos. So there you have it, that. But now getting to this pay-per-view, overall, I mean, this was a pretty solid show. There are about 7 matches here on the card. I mean, there are some matches here that were kind of mediocre at best, but despite that, there were still some consistently good matches, if not great. So, I mean, yeah, so that aside, I mean, let's just get started. We get to the opening match which was a steel cage match between Triple H, or as at the time he was known as Hunter Hearst Helmsley, taking on Mankind. This is inside a steel cage. For a show opening match, you would think that a match like this would be saved, or at least reserved for like the middle of the pay-per-view, or at least in the main event spot. But this was actually the first match on the card, and it was a really great way to kind of get the crowd pumping. This is back when these guys were mid-carders. Triple H, as we now know him now, he won the King of the Ring around this time, and Mankind was also in the King of the Ring, and I think he lost to Triple H to win King of the Ring, so they were at the finals. At least I think that's how I remember, but correct me if I'm wrong there. And then they had a match at Canadian Stampede, which was ended in pretty controversy, and this kind of culminates inside this steel cage. And just some really good back and forth here. Both guys try to utilize the cage, just either slamming each other through the fence of the cage. And then there was no spot where Triple H did a superplex off the cage. I know I'm saying cage so repetitively, I apologize. And just some really cool spots here. Chyna was also at ringside, and she was the valet to Triple H at the time. She slides in the steel chair, and Mankind did a double DDT on Triple H on the steel chair. And I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was going on, but there was one notable spot where Mankind was trying to climb over the cage, and it looked like he was gonna win, but he figured it was too easy, so Mankind did like a top rope elbow, well, not top rope, but an elbow drop from top of the cage. That's basically what I'm trying to say, and it connects on Triple H, and then the match ended when Mankind climbed over the cage and landed at ringside successfully, while Chyna tried to drag Triple H through the cage door, but they were too late. So Mankind basically wins this match. I mean, this was a really great match, like I said, um, especially for a show opening match, which is pretty rare, for that, since most of these matches kind of don't get past 10 minutes, except for like maybe recent pay-per-views, but that's beyond the point. But but Mankind versus Triple H, for what it was a really enjoyable match. There was no blood in the match, so I mean, the Attitude Era didn't officially really kick into gear just quite yet. I mean, they were still doing edgy stuff, but this was at a time where it was still rare for anyone to bleed in these sort of matches, especially cage matches. But regardless, Triple H versus Mankind, a very enjoyable match. Perhaps the match of the night, so 4 stars. I mean, it's a really underrated encounter. I mean, a lot of people always talk about their 2000 matches, which were great, don't get me wrong, but their 97 feud was pretty underrated. But, that aside, I mean, 4 stars at that. And then we get to the second match on the card between Goldust taking on Brian Pillman. The match stipulation is that if one of these guys loses, then they have to wear Marlena's dress the next night on Monday Night Raw. I mean, this is a really weird match stipulation, but that plays a big part as we go on in the video later on, because, I mean, in this pay-per-view, I mean, the Hart Foundation was just given with these weird match stipulations about what would happen if they win or lose. So, I mean, it was pretty over the top, but we'll get to that. And this match was one of the main examples of that. So, Goldust versus Brian Pillman, just a solid match. Just some pretty good back and forth here. Both guys kind of brawled briefly at ringside. Just a regular TV style pace match. I mean, Brian Pillman, I mean, it's really a shame what happened to him, just how he died so young. And, I mean, I kind of wish I really got the chance to kind of watch more of his matches, because, I mean, at the time, I mean, I was still pretty young at the time to even remember anything in regards to his matches, whether it's like WCW or even during his brief WWE run. So, I mean, it's quite unfortunate what happened. So, rest in peace, Brian Pillman. But getting back in the match, just like I said, some back and forth action. The match ended when Goldust tried to do a sunset flip on Brian Pillman, but then, Pillman tries to fight it off, and then, like, Marlena grabbed her shoe and just clubbed it onto Brian Pillman. And so, like, Goldust won with the sunset flip roll-up. So, I mean, the referee didn't notice somehow. But pretty much after that, Brian Pillman just kind of went irate and just had to wear a dress. So that's really how the match ended. So, I mean, 3 stars. I mean, it's a good match, but not too great. But it is what it is. So Goldust pretty much picks up the win there. The next match we have is a tag team match. The Legion of Doom taking on the Godwinns. I mean, this was the build-up was kind of from this incident where the LOD, the Road Warriors, whatever you want to call them, they tried to do like a Doomsday device, and while they succeeded in doing so, one of the Godwin brothers, or at least one of the Godwinns, it was like Henry or Phineas, landed pretty hard on their necks. I mean, it nearly like damaged their vertebrae, one of their vertebrae. And that's kind of really how the feud kind of originated from. And then they kind of showed like some Raw recap shows where they pretty much show the incident and just how the feud unfolded. So I mean, that's really how the match takes place. Just pretty much a TV style match. Just really a lot of hot tags like you would expect in a tag match. I mean, the match, I mean, when I was watching that match, I mean, it looked like it was kind of dragging on here and there. But, just a, like I said, a really solid match. I mean, nothing too memorable. They tried to do a doomsday device, but they didn't. But they didn't go in that route, or um, at least it backfired. And instead, the match ended when LOD pretty much did a double team pile driver on one of the Godwinns to win the match. So, like I said, LOD won the match, and overall, this match kind of gets 2.25 stars. I mean, nothing too memorable, but nothing too terrible necessarily. But just a regular TV match. So there you have it. That. And then you get to the fourth match on the card, which is Ken Shamrock versus the British Bulldog. Pretty much like the Goldust Bryan Pillman stipulation. They also, the Hart Foundation also have the win-lose consequence, where like if if they either win or lose, they'll have to something happens. So I mean, there's always some like consequences. Excuse me there. So basically, in this match, if one of these guys loses, then they had to eat a can of dog food. So that's really a match stipulation there. And Shamrock and Bulldog had a pretty good, nice back and forth match. I mean, they also brawled a little bit around ringside. Just some really. I mean, Ken Shamrock's run in the WWF was really underrated. A lot of people affiliate him as more of a MMA guy. He was pretty big in UFC. UFC in the 90s was pretty. I mean, it was underground at the time. I mean, this was before it really hit mainstream. And around that time, I mean, there was barely any regulations. It wasn't really treated like a legit sport like it is now. But Shamrock was one of the big stars, one of the big mainstays there at the time. And, UFC was pretty much banned from TV airwaves at the time. So, I mean, for a guy like Shamrock, I mean, it was pretty good. I mean, yeah, he wasn't really known for being on the mic, or at least known for any of his mic skills. But, I mean, for a guy who came from, who has a MMA background and a bit of wrestling, I mean, he was still pretty cool. His character was always snapping, and but Shamrock and Bulldog had a pretty good match. The match ended when Shamrock clubbed British Bulldog with the dog food can, and then Shamrock just pretty much choked the life out of British Bulldog, and then the referees, pretty much all the staff committees, tried to come out and break the hold, but Ken Shamrock refused. And then Shamrock continued to snap when he started belly-to-belly suplexing pretty much every staff member, especially the referees. Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson were there, and this is a little before the whole McMahon Stooges thing. But they were there, and Ken Shamrock just pretty much took all the, just pretty much took down all the staff members. And then then British Bulldog, just damn, I can't remember. Shamrock tried to put dog food can or the dog food on British Bulldog and poured it on all over him. So that's pretty much how the match ended. I mean, that was probably the only thing that was probably I remember is really the ending. But it was still a pretty good match, even regardless. But 3 stars. And then we get to the next match, which is a 10-man tag team match. This is the Los Boricuas taking on the Disciples of Apocalypse. Now, how this feud unfolds is, Savio Vega, the leader of Los Boricuas, and Crush, who was the leader of DOA, they were both part of the Nation of Domination, which was led by Farouk. And then there was dissension going on at the time, and then Farouk came up short against the Undertaker at King of the Ring. And then there was dissension going on here and there. And, Farouk fired Savio and Crush, and then, then it started this whole gang warfare where Savio and Crush start forming a stable of their own. And this kind of led to the whole faction wars, which was pretty much more of a racial war. you had like Nation of Domination was still around. They pretty much retooled the stable as an all black militia group, and then Los Boricuas and DOA were either like Hispanics and Caucasians respectively. So so that's really how the kind of the feud unfolded. So I mean, yeah, the Boricuas and DOA in a tag match. I mean, this was a really sloppy match. I mean, there was always too much going on. It's just I couldn't really recognize anyone in the group outside of Crush and Savio. I mean, most of the members of the group were just pretty forgettable. And then you have like Nation of Domination coming out from the crowd, and they kind of interfered in the match too, but the referee didn't really notice for some reason. Ahmed Johnson, who had joined the Nation, he did a pile driver on Crush, I believe, or at least one of the DOA members. It was like right on the concrete, even though JR said it was like a Pearl River plunge, but that's pretty much nitpicking there. And the match ended when Savio did like a running elbow drop to pretty much win for Los Boricuas and his team. So Los Boricuas pretty much won the match. And then there was like all hell breaking loose, and then like I think Crush tried to run over one of the Los Boricua members with his motorcycle. So I mean, it was just a lot of chaos going on. Pretty over the top. But I mean, this is probably one of my least favorite matches of the night. So about 1 1/4 stars. And then we get to the double header main event of the night. We have the Intercontinental Championship on the line. We have Owen Hart going in as the champion, taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold was actually one half the tag champs, but he didn't defend the tag belts. He and Dude Love were tag champs. But then you had like, I mean, this was a really great match. I mean, it gets often overshadowed because of the ending. And as we all know, Owen kind of did that pile driver, like a tombstone pile driver on Austin, and then like Austin's neck got paralyzed. So a lot of people remember that match for the ending, but I mean, even before then, I mean, it was still a really great match. A lot of Owen Hart matches, they were actually pretty watchable. Just technical wrestling, and some really good fast-paced match. It's really a shame that he passed away. Rest in peace, Owen. But it was just a really good match. Stone Cold, just really on top of his game at the time, and just some really good fast-paced match. You got there was a stipulation like if Stone Cold lost the match, then he had to kiss Owen Hart's ass. So it's pretty ridiculous, but that didn't happen. Just some pretty cool stuff here. Owen Hart, utilizing some in-ring psychology. Just working the legs, working on Stone Cold's middle finger, and just pretty much wrenching it. So Owen Hart had to play in-ring psychology, and just a really good just a pretty good paced match. Just a couple rest holds here and there. And I already discussed the Owen Hart tombstone pile driver incident. And then I mean, Austin was gonna win the match anyway, but Owen like checked his pulse, just to see if Austin was okay, because he looked like he knew that he did something wrong. And so Owen Hart had to improvise, and then like Stone Cold rolled up Owen Hart to become the new Intercontinental Champion. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good match up until the pile driver incident. About 3 1/4 stars. Probably would have been 4 if it wasn't for the incident, but it didn't stop it from being great. But it was still a pretty watchable match. So I mean, but regardless, Stone Cold ended up fighting his broken neck, and then just continuing to wrestle for the next couple years, and we all know he became the big star that he was, and then had to retire in 03. So I mean, it was a really great match. So about 3.25 stars. And then we get to the main event for the WWF Championship. We have the champion, The Undertaker, taking on Bret Hart. And like many of the other Hart Foundation related matches, this match had a stipulation. If Bret Hart lost the match, then he wouldn't have to wrestle in America again. And if HBK did something wrong as the guest referee, or he does something questionable, then he'll stop wrestling in America too. So I mean, just some really weird match stipulations that night. Um, but it was still a pretty good match. I mean, it really took long for the match to get underway. Bret Hart saying his "Oh Canada" speech. Well, he did. He cut a little promo, and then he played the "Oh Canada" national anthem. Um, let's see. And so it kind of took a while to get things settled up, and so I mean, Undertaker Bret Hart, just a pretty good match. Just apologize for that. And he also had like Owen Hart and Brian Pillman coming out and interfering in the match. Um, Shawn Michaels, showing some signs of a heel turn that he eventually took. Um, and then the ending came when um, like Shawn and Bret had a little argument, which led to Bret spitting on Shawn's face, and in retaliation, he was gonna use the steel chair to hit Bret, but Bret dodged and accidentally hit the Undertaker. And then Bret gets the cover. Shawn reluctantly makes the 3 count, and Bret Hart pretty much becomes your new WWF champion. So I mean, a lot of controversy after the match, and just Shawn Michaels walking away, and Bret Hart along with the whole Hart Foundation, celebrating Bret's victory. Um, I mean, it was a pretty good paced match. Just I don't know. I mean, Undertaker and Bret had some pretty. It's a pretty underrated feud. Not a lot of people talk about it. I like their matches like in the Royal Rumble in '96, and their SummerSlam '97 match was just as good. But they always had to end in like some controversy for some reason. Um, but just Taker and Bret, just a really underrated feud, like I said. Bret, just I like really some of the stuff that he did, with the figure four on the ring post and then the sharpshooter on the ring post too. So I mean, it was pretty cool stuff. And Undertaker was just being Undertaker. Um, I mean, it was a pretty underrated title reign for Undertaker. I mean, he held it for like 4 months, but most of his feuds were basically challenger of the month. So I guess that's why his title reigns tend to get forgettable. Or not a lot of people talk about Undertaker's second title reign, but it was probably one of his better ones. Um, but I mean, that aside, I mean, Undertaker Bret, just a really great match. Undertaker's title reign came to an end. Um, so I mean, 3.5 stars. Not as good as maybe the Intercontinental title match, but it's still pretty watchable at best, despite the controversy. Overall, SummerSlam 1997 gets a 7 out of 10. Just a pretty good show. Not the most spectacular pay-per-view in the world, but still enough for me to kind of tolerate. Just something to watch. Just very tolerable show. So yeah, I mean, let me know what you think about this pay-per-view. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Stay tuned because I will be continuing with my SummerSlam Archival reviews down the line. Not sure what year I'll be doing for, but just kind of leaving you hanging there. So I mean, till next time, this is the Gold Standard 00924 signing out.